spiritual growth of a believer depends on a few things. I'll just name them. If we find time, we'll go deep in them. It depends on a few things. And number one, you all know, the spiritual growth of a believer depends on learning sound Bible doctrine. Those words are all of them are important. It must be sound Bible doctrine, not just any other doctrine, because we have doctrines of denominations, we have doctrines of men of God, we have doctrines, different doctrines, we have theological doctrines that are never found anywhere in the Bible. But it must be sound Bible doctrine. It must be truth. So the first step involves learning Bible doctrine. You can guess the spiritual level of any group of people just based on how they are interested in Bible studies. You can gauge. You don't need science to know. Just see how people are interested in study, in the learning of the Word of God. You can gauge their spiritual level. And people who are not interested in the learning of the Word of God, even in Grace Covenant Church, they are the ones involved in gossiping, in fighting others, in doing all those crazy things, in blaming others, in complaining. If you hear any noise anywhere, you will not find a person sitting here right now involved. You can gauge the spiritual level of people through how much they love the Word of God. Number two, so after you have learned the Word of God, it takes a submission, a yielding to God. It gives you spiritual growth. Learning the Word of God, a yielding to God. Submission is one of the hardest virtues of Christianity. To know what the Word says and to be willing to harness all your human abilities, preferences, and harness them under the power of God and tell God, I may be wanting to go this direction, but you say I go this direction. Here I am, God. I am willing. It's the hardest part. People want always to have their way, and they call God to bless their way. If God says this is the blessed path, you say, no, God, I'll be going this way, and while I'm going, I'll be praying and calling upon you and claiming my promises that you bless me as I go this way. Yielding, submission to the will of God, to the revealed will, plan, and purpose of God for your life is very important. Because as you study the Word of God, as you learn the Word of God, you get to know the revealed will, plan, and purpose of God for your life. Then as you know it, the next step is to submit under it. To yield, to tell God, you are always right. Even when what you are thinking makes more sense, is more rational. It looks like it's the real thing. If God says it is not, then it is not. Number 3, spiritual growth entails enduring trials and temptations. Enduring trials and temptations. Most of us can learn the Word of God, can want to yield to God, but when trials and temptations come, you give up. You give up. I will have some more time to go through that. James speaks in James chapter 1 and says, if you don't know how to go through trials and temptation, pray and God will give you wisdom. He gives it liberally.